Would you give your life to defend the truth? There are stories that shake you that aren't just told. They are felt. This is one of them. Imagine being a man loved by your people, a wise, just, and humble bishop. Imagine witnessing the horror of an invasion that destroys everything in its path. And now imagine that you are the only hope, not by your sword, but by your faith. This is the story of Saint Desiderius of Langres, a man who chose death over lying, who embraced sacrifice rather than betrayal of God and his people. His courage not only saved souls but ignited a flame of faith that still burns today in the hearts of the faithful. Join me and get ready to hear how a simple bishop became a glorious martyr. Because when darkness covered everything, his faith was stronger than fear. Langres was a prosperous city in ancient Gaul, where Christians were beginning to flourish under the guidance of a man chosen by God. Desiderius, their bishop. He had no riches, nor did he exercise power with force, but with love. He walked among the poor, listened to the children, comforted the widows, and prayed every night for his people. His life was a living testimony of the gospel. They said there was peace in his eyes and truth in his voice, but the peace would not last. It was the year 355, and the shadow of war was approaching. The Vandals, fierce invaders from the north, were heading toward Langres like an unstoppable storm. The walls would not hold, and hearts began to tremble. And while many prepared to flee, Desiderius knelt before the altar and said, "Lord, do not give me the strength of an army. Give me the courage to shepherd until the end." That was the beginning of a trial that would reveal that his faith was not just words. It was total surrender. The sound of hooves and war cries shattered the dawn. The Vandals had arrived. Like a wave of destruction, they crossed the fields, looted homes, burned churches, and spread terror. The people of Langres, desperate, ran to their bishop. Some begged for weapons, others pleaded for miracles. But Desiderius neither hid nor fled. He went out to meet the invaders. Without escort, without fear, he raised his cross and walked toward the enemy camp. His only shield, faith. When he was captured, the soldiers dragged him before the barbarian leader. Seeing him so calm, the leader mocked, "Are you the chief of this city?" "I am not a chief," Desiderius calmly replied. "I am a shepherd, and I will not abandon my flock." The answer surprised even the cruelest of warriors. But the barbarian leader had another plan, to use the bishop to break the soul of the people. "If you speak ill of your people, if you condemn their faith, you will live. And if I don't, will I die?" Desiderius asked. "Yes." "Then know that my life is already in God's hands." The news spread quickly. Bishop Desiderius had been captured. In the city, tears mingled with prayers. No one slept. No one ate. Everyone knew their shepherd was among wolves, and that it could be the end. Meanwhile, Desiderius was relentlessly interrogated. They offered him riches, lands, power, if only he dared to condemn his people, to renounce his faith. But he did not. Then the barbarian leader decided to do the unthinkable. He summoned the people to the outskirts of Langres. There, surrounded by the Vandals and with his people as witnesses, Desiderius was forced to kneel in the middle of the field. An executioner raised his sword. The silence was so deep that distant sobs could be heard. And then, the bishop raised his eyes to heaven and said firmly, "Lord, receive your servant. I do not die out of hatred, but out of love for your truth." And the blow fell. Desiderius' body fell to the ground, but his spirit rose to heaven like pure incense. In that moment, something changed in the hearts of the people and, surprisingly, also in the enemies. Desiderius' body lay motionless, but the echo of his faith began to thunder silently in the hearts of all present. The barbarians, used to screams of fear and pleas, faced a man who had died in peace, and that peace disarmed them. Some warriors lowered their weapons. Others knelt silently. Even the barbarian leader, hardened by 1,000 battles, stood still, gazing at the martyr's face. And for the first time in years, he trembled. "Who was this man who did not fear death?" he murmured. The city did not rebel with violence, nor demand revenge. They did something more powerful. They carried their bishop's body in procession, singing psalms through tears. Langres was not conquered by the sword. It was saved by the blood of a righteous man. And while the enemies withdrew, not fully understanding what had happened, the people understood that a shepherd had given his life for his sheep, just as Christ did. The years passed, but the memory of Saint Desiderius never faded. Where his blood was shed, hope sprang forth. Over his tomb, a church was built. In people's hearts, a certainty grew. True faith does not die with the body, but flourishes through example. Many began to change their way of life. The bishop's kindness inspired young people to dedicate themselves, families to pray, and even enemies to convert. His story crossed borders, generations, and centuries. In every corner where someone doubts, where someone suffers for defending the truth, Desiderius' voice echoes. "I die for love, not for hatred." He was declared a martyr and a saint. And every May 23rd, in Langres and beyond, his name rises to heaven amid prayers and flowers. But beyond titles and dates, Saint Desiderius remains the shepherd who did not flee, the man who, faced with fear, chose the cross. Saint Desiderius left no great writings, nor did he deliver famous speeches. His testimony was his life, his sermon his death, and in that courageous silence, he spoke louder than 1,000 words. Today, so many centuries later, his story remains alive. Not because he was a hero in war, but because he chose faithfulness when all seemed lost. How many times do we feel fear? How many times does the world push us to silence the truth, to give up, to betray our values? Saint Desiderius reminds us that there is a power stronger than fear, love for God, that we can overcome without violence, resist without hatred, and die winning eternity. He did not fight with weapons. He fought with faith, and that is why, although his body fell to the earth, his soul rose to heaven like a beacon that still shines today. Final reflection: what would you do? The life of Saint Desiderius leaves us with a question that crosses centuries and hearts. Are you willing to stand firm in your faith, even if it costs you everything? Because true courage is not measured by physical strength or power, but by the ability to love unconditionally and to trust God even when darkness seems unbeatable. Today, in a world full of fear, injustice, and doubt, Saint Desiderius' example is a living call to never give up on the truth. Defend what is good with humility and courage. Give your life for others even in small daily acts. His sacrifice was a beacon that still lights up our shadows. Do you dare to follow that path?